This is Pastor Robert, and I've sat down with Caleb to ask a few questions on the music training we just sent him to and have sent him to over a number of years. Well, so instead of me introducing it, Caleb, where did you just come back from, and what was it?
I just returned from level 3 of the Chenanaya Summer Music Institute. This is a 3-year course, intensive 2 weeks over 3 summers, and training in the Kodaly methodology of music education. So that's a long 2 weeks, each time full days from morning till evening, and then late into the night doing homework. And I've just finally completed the last level of it.
Yeah, good. So why have we sent you there, and why have you been willing to give now 6 weeks of your life to this program?
Yeah, there's lots of different benefits, which has led me to keep going back, right? After not just one, but finally deciding, okay, I'm going to go finish out this program. And the first one, I'd say, is very relevant to my aspiration to be a pastor, right? I'm a pastor in training. And this training is a Christian, explicitly Christian training, thinking about music and music in the church. And at this training, you're having lots of conversations that are very helpful for the pastoral nature of music, and music and hymnody, to be in one particular example, in the church. It is actually part of the pastoral task to shepherd their congregation through the hymns or music that is chosen.
Right.
It's not simply a matter of choosing texts that don't have any doctrinal problems in them. That's one part of it. But how is the music shaping the people's conception of worship, of what worship is, their corporate piety? Is the music itself giving an amen to the text? Is it working together with it to create something that is true? Is the music competing with the text? These are all things that require musical discernment,
right?
And not just the knowledge of theology, even
right.
An actual hands-on, practical understanding of music.
Yeah.
Say, how is this music working, and is it leading my people in a healthy direction towards wisdom,
right.
towards a proper understanding of worship?
This is more than preference or style.
Right, yeah, it's giving concrete ways to actually evaluate these things.
Okay.
And I find it very helpful for my own thinking, but also in explaining to, if anyone listening has a question about, okay, why are we doing this hymn, or why are we not doing this hymn, or this song, for example, to actually work through real reasons so that it's not just my preference over your preference. One of the best conversations I had these past 2 weeks was about what seems like a very particular question about what musicians call chromaticism, which is just the presence of notes in a song that are in the key you're in. Right? If you're singing in the key of C, you may have heard someone say that. If you're having notes that are altered so that there's notes that are normally in the key of C, that's chromaticism. And just a very helpful conversation about chromaticism itself isn't bad, but there are improper uses of it that can lead to poor hymnody, where there's an excessive use of it. That leads to a kind of sentimentality, a kind of schmaltziness. I don't know if there's a better way to say that.
Yeah. We hear a lot of that kind of thing in some of the revival hymns.
Yeah.
Of the previous generation.
Right, and it's some of the Victorian era hymns. And this way we can be discerning and not just saying old good, new bad, but actually sorting through all of it and saying, okay, there was an era in church history here where they're leaning heavily on this trope of chromaticism, but they're not doing it in a way that reflects the text. We had a great conversation about comparing it to Bach, his B minor mass, where he sets the Apostles' Creed, in the line, and Christ, and he was crucified. He uses this chromaticism, which is very useful for communicating torturedness, like a kind of tortured feeling.
Yeah.
And so in that way, that chromaticism was reflecting the text.
Yeah.
Often the chromaticism is used in those Victorian hymns not to reflect a kind of tortured thing. The text isn't talking about that. It ends up being showy.
Yeah.
So those very particular things are actually very helpful, and we need to a pastor needs to consider those things.
That's right. That's
We're,
right.
we're out of
Yeah.
we're not used to thinking that way anymore. That the pastors need to be considering those things, how it's affecting their conversation, even or their congregation, even specific things like that. It's a popular quote I've heard a lot, that Martin Luther wouldn't consider a man for the ministry if he didn't have some level of music education.
Right. Well, I think that in my training,
perhaps for reasons like that.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah. We're going to go further on that. In my training, it was minimal in regard to music, though they did consider it, right? Meaning they said, all right, the likelihood is that you're going to be in a church where you're going to have to lead the singing, because that's the majority of churches in America, right? Under 100. Yep. And so they said, here's a hymnal, and here's how you lead a song in time, and you're going to have to be tested on it, and then basically go out, right? So it was the recognition that this is a significant part of training and teaching in the life of the church. And it's one of the things that pastorally, right from there, I've asked then, okay, I need over and over again, people that were musicians, I teach you to read a Bible, I need you to teach me to read a hymnal, because both of these things are teaching. Okay. This is good. So this has a pastoral benefit, and then that pastoral benefit of, say, as we're planning services, is benefiting and shaping the congregation. And then we could also begin to converse in a way that shows, no, this is something about the nature of music that is doing something, and it's not just an arbitrary preference.
It gives us real handholds to talk about.
That's right. Good. Yeah. Well, keep going. What are some of the whys for evening training, this program? How is it coming home to us and benefiting us?
Other things that are helpful, further conducting training, which I use most weeks in church, but also with our new choir. That's just helpful to get reinforcement and refinement on that.
Yeah.
And then a big part of the course is learning what I said before is Kodaly methodology for teaching younger kids music. Right? It's a very careful, intentionally planned out sequence of education for teaching the youngest, even the youngest kids, focusing on around kindergarten through 6th grade. And this obviously is very relevant to the music classes I teach at parish school, but also just more generally, this program is such a good reminder and preparation for what the goal of music education needs to be. This program, going back again, was just a reminder and reaffirmation for me of the goal of what music education would be. And that is musical literacy. Yeah. So that's what's something that's unique about the Kodaly methodology is its goal. Yeah. And so musical literacy is probably what you'd think it is if you had to guess. Yeah. Reading literacy, right, is you can pick up a book and you can look at the words on the page, and you could read them, either hearing them in your head or you could speak them aloud. Yeah. You could hear people speak words and you know how to write them down. And you even, for basic literacy, you can write some simple sentences, right? Music literacy is that same thing. You can pick up a sheet of music, right? And you have the tools to look at it, to hear it in your head, to sing it tunefully and correctly as it's notated, to hear music and understand what's going on and be able to write it down. Yeah. And even if you're fully literate, write some basic music, right? That is musical literacy. And that is actually a very good goal, perhaps even a needed goal for the church to reattain. Right. Because part of our goal,
reattain, because we've had it at one point.
Yeah. So the Apostle Paul, he commands us to sing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, And he says that is the way in which the word of Christ dwells in us richly.
That's good.
And so our goal should be this kind of diffusion of psalms, hymns, and spiritual psalms throughout all our life, because that is just one of the foremost ways that we diffuse the word of Christ throughout all our lives, right?
Yeah.
This is why we should have a musical culture in our church, yes, but even beyond the boundaries of that and everything else, where this music, this joyful music, this praise of Christ goes throughout everything. Mm-hmm. It is very difficult. Here's the crux of the matter, right? Yeah. It's very difficult to have that long term or at all if we don't have a basic level of musical literacy in the church. Right? It's very hard for that level of diffusion throughout everything when you don't have musical literacy.
Right. And it's not happening culturally anymore either. There's no place where it's happening.
Right. Yeah. It's true. I mean, if you think about how helpful reading literacy is.
Yeah.
But we so easily recognize why reading literacy is so important for the Christian life, right? Mm-hmm. And so to the same degree that being able to read, helps us understand the Bible and gives us access to so much great, literature and books throughout history and great works from our fathers in the faith. To the same degree that being able to read helps you access all of that, having music literacy gives you that amount of access to the church is music, right?
Yeah.
That much more access, which is exponentially more, right?
That's right.
Think about if someone had to read to you everything.
This is exactly
right.
Yeah, this is exactly why I was stuck for so many years.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, if you didn't know how to read, someone has to read to you everything.
Yeah.
If you want to know what it says. Mm-hmm. If you don't have music literacy, someone has to play for you everything and repeat it until you can catch on.
Yes. Yeah.
Music literacy, it's amazing how if you can pick something up and know what it says, think about how much more naturally you can participate in the life of the church.
I had these hymnals sitting on my shelf for years. That was the thing. I would bring them to someone and say, teach me this. It's there, but it's inaccessible to me. Right. And that's where I feel in recent years I've been able to. I still don't have that literacy, but I have so much more access and so much more joy as a result. So you mentioned Luther. I mean, he, in wanting to bring Reformation that was going to last generations, right? He brought three tools: the Reformation of the church's liturgy, right? And what is the order of our service? How does that go? How does it preach the gospel? A Reformation of the church's doctrine with a catechism, both for the priest and for the father, large and small, and then a Reformation of the church's hymnal, right? So he gave them a hymnal, had psalms written, written metrical psalms for singing, and then he taught them to the children first. Mm-hmm. Right. So this was his means. These three things were his means. And this is exactly these three are the same three things we've been working on for a number of years. Right. So, I mean, I think we can go on for this for hours and be fun, but certainly emphasize for us, and anything else you want to say, but certainly emphasize for us why. So we want biblical literacy. Mm-hmm. We want our people to know the Bible inside and out, so it's coming out of them in conversations and normal thoughts. We want doctrinal literacy. That's going to come with the catechism and confession. But we also want musical literacy. I think the first two are a little more obvious to people. Mm-hmm. Why is that third one vital for the life of the church, especially a church with a generational vision?
I'd reemphasize again just the ease and naturalness with which you can enter into the musical life of the church grows exponentially once you have that. And if you have a base level of musical literacy, like once you get that, it is actually maintainable over long periods of time, right? Once it's hard right now because most of us don't have that level of music literacy. Yeah. So it's going to take some work to get back to that. Mm-hmm. And it seems like a big task. Mm-hmm. But there have been periods, and perhaps most, before where cultures were more musical than they are now. Folk singing was a thing. Yeah. And there was just a base level of music literacy. That even in places where there wasn't formal education, people knew how to sing, even knew how to sing in harmony, right? Because they just did it, right?
It was native.
Yeah, it's native. So if we can put in the work to, with careful education, get to a place of musical literacy again, it actually maintains itself much longer over time and guards that practice of singing the psalms and hymns and spiritual songs in the church. Yeah. When there's a place where there's a kind of foundational musical literacy, kids growing up in that pick it up. Even they can go far away even without formal education.
Yeah.
But when you have the base level literacy and even some careful education, like they can go, the next generations can go amazing places, right?
Yeah.
A great example from this last trip, I had the chance to see a visiting Mennonite choir come through the town where the training was. And this was just made up of members of Mennonite churches who auditioned and joined this choir. Just amazingly skilled, but all ordinary people. And we talked to a man who joined the choir after, and he said he's a wheat farmer from Georgia. Right? No technical musical training. He grew up in a church that sang, I believe, a cappella, but he said, well, we asked him how he learned to sing. He said, well, my parents taught me at home, so I don't know all of what that was in that. But the other things that he actually he pointed to were, we just sang in church. We sang 4 parts in church, and we sang at home all the time. And I just grew up loving singing. And so in a lot of Mennonite cultures like his church, they have a base level of musical literacy, and he growing up in that just imbibed a lot of it.
Yeah.
And he can sing in this very excellent choir, right? And he grew up loving it, right? So that is why music literacy is so helpful for a long-term vision, because once you get to that, it sustains itself and it keeps going, and children growing up into it are native speakers of music.
That draws all of us forward, right, in so many ways, because we see the joyful fruit of it.
Right. Yeah. And it's also helpful for people who aren't musically literate joining your church, because if there's strong singers around you, right, it's so much easier to just to give your best shot and jump in. Right?
No, good point. I need to hear somebody to sing the bass line of the doxology for me to be able to sing it on Sunday. So good.
And it's just a joy too for me to I've been blessed to be in churches where people love singing, right? And through trainings like this, get to rub shoulders with people who have been doing this work for a long time and have actually seen the fruit come about from it. And I can see the fruit in their students that they show us, or I can be in congregations that have done this work for a couple decades and have seen some of the fruit that comes from it. And it's an absolute joy to sing in a culture where music is imbued with music, that it's diffused throughout. But it's also been encouraging here to see so part of my goal is I want to get this music literacy training off the ground. Right? That's at least what I can do with the gifts I have as far as they go, right? Is I can get this going. Why I've been teaching at the parish school, and it's still been encouraging even with my capabilities with this extra help from the training to see the fruit going, and to see kids being farther along than I was. Right? I had no way of reading music until I was like I couldn't sight read anything until college, right? When someone showed me, and my youngest kids have just started reading their first notes on the staff, right? And my oldest kids are reading pentatonic scale, right? At the last parish school recitation night, I had them sight read a hymn in front of everyone, right? And they did a good job. You got a good job.
It was amazing.
Yeah. And that's not something I could do at their age. So just I'm encouraged when I see that. Like, these are baby steps, lots of work to do, but even now, these kids are getting a head start. So it's my goal that all the kids in our class or kids in our church and kind of this rising generation would have a shot at music literacy, have a chance to participate in this fully with all of who they are in the musical culture of the church. And finally, comes to the last consideration is when you have musical literacy, like, music is in you, right? It's something you own, you have. And talking about stability, like, no one at that point can take it away from you, right? And no one in the society can take the worship away from the church, right? Like, they can cut our power, right? They can take away our sound amplification. They can take away our instruments. If we have it in us, right, then it's always with us. Yeah, they can't take music away from us. They can't take the worship of God away from us. So that's their generational vision right there.
And amen to that, right? The Bible doctrine, music, they can't take it away from us because we have it. We own it. It's inside of us. Amen to that. Well, thank you for being willing to go to these trainings, and thanks for what you brought back. I mean, it's funny. You talk about what you didn't have. Yeah, I said, well, me either, right? It's like you have more than I had, and you've been bringing things back to me, and I'm a beneficiary and grateful. So is our church. Thanks. Look forward to seeing the fruit of how it comes out Sunday, Pair School, all around. So, thanks, Caleb.
Thanks.